Did a lonely man's final words, printed in a newspaper, really lead to a rock and roll anthem? What does a proud soldier's comment about his shoes have to do with a million-selling record? Can a simple phone call between a husband and wife become a song of universal heartbreak? The stories behind the songs are often more surprising than the lyrics themselves. They don't always come from professional hit factories. Sometimes they come from a rainy night on a highway, a childhood memory of poverty, or a prayer said in a hospital chapel. These are the stories of how regular life, in all its messy, beautiful, and mundane detail, found its way into the music of Elvis Presley. Number 20. What was in that lonely man's note? The song cost just 25 cents to listen to on a jukebox. It sold 300,000 copies in its first week. By April 1956, it had sold over 1 million copies, the first Elvis Presley single to do so. Yet, an executive at RCA Records, Steve Sholes, initially told producer Chet Atkins that the song would ruin Elvis's budding career. He called it a morbid, suicidal song. The song was Heartbreak Hotel. The story didn't start with Elvis. It didn't even start with a musician. It started with a newspaper article in the Miami Herald. The article reported the suicide of a man who had jumped from a hotel window. He left behind a simple one-line note. The note said, "I walk a lonely street." That line struck Tommy Durden, a steel guitar player and songwriter from Florida. He saw something in those 4 words, a story of complete and total isolation. Durden took the idea to Ma Boren Axton. Axton was a high school English teacher and a part-time public relations person and songwriter. She was known around Jacksonville as the Queen Mother of Country Music for her work promoting local artists. She was also the mother of a future country music star, Hoyt Axton. When Durden showed her the newspaper clipping, she immediately recognized its potential. She told him, "Let's put a Heartbreak Hotel at the end of this lonely street." The image was powerful. A physical place where the brokenhearted go. They sat down in Axton's kitchen to write. The song came together quickly, in about 22 minutes, according to Axton's memory. They created a dark, bluesy world. A hotel with a desk clerk dressed in black, a bellhop whose tears never dried. A place at the end of Lonely Street where people went to die from a broken heart. It was a far cry from the upbeat pop songs of the day. Axton had a connection. She knew Elvis Presley. She had met him and his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, and promised she would write him a hit song. This she knew, was it? She traveled to a country music convention in Nashville in November 1955 to pitch it. Elvis was there. Axton played him their demo recording. Elvis loved it. He saw the drama in it. He recognized the raw emotion that his other songs lacked. He promised to record it as his first single for his new label, RCA Victor. The recording session took place on January 10th, 1956, in Nashville. It was Elvis's first session for RCA. The established Nashville session musicians were a bit confused by the song. The chord progression was unusual. The mood was somber. Guitarist Chet Atkins, who was in charge of the session, was skeptical. But Elvis took control. He knew how he wanted it to sound. He played rhythm guitar on his own Martin D-18. He directed the band. He wanted it to be sparse and echoey. To get the unique sound, producer Steve Sholes tried to replicate the echo effect of Sam Phillips's Sun studio in Memphis. Sun had a natural echo from its high ceilings and tiled floors. The RCA studio in Nashville did not. So they placed a speaker at one end of a long hallway and a microphone at the other. They pumped the sound of Elvis's voice and the instruments down the hall and recorded the reverberation. That hallway echo is what gives Heartbreak Hotel its spooky, cavernous sound. It makes the loneliness feel real, like you're in that big, empty hotel lobby with him. When RCA executives first heard it, they were not pleased. They thought it sounded nothing like his Sun records. They worried the dark subject matter would alienate his young fans. They were wrong. The public connected with it instantly. It went to number 1 on the Billboard Top 100 chart and stayed there for 7 weeks. It also hit number 1 on the country charts and number 3 on the R&B charts, a rare feat. It was a song born from a tragedy, a forgotten man's last words, transformed by a teacher and a musician into a piece of music history. Number 19, Could a Potato Sack Launch a Rock and Roll Classic? The song sold over 2 million copies for Elvis Presley in 1956. It was his first single to chart on all three Billboard charts simultaneously: pop, R&B, and country. But Elvis didn't write it. He wasn't even the first to record it. The song was Blue Suede Shoes, and its origins lie with a poor Tennessee musician, a United States airman, and a piece of a brown paper potato sack. The musician was Carl Perkins. He was a rising star at Sun Records in Memphis, the same label where Elvis got his start. Perkins played a fiery style of rockabilly. He was a talented guitarist and a heartfelt singer. In late 1955, he was playing a show in Arkansas. He overheard a young man in the crowd speaking sternly to his date. The man was a low-ranking airman. He was wearing his government-issued dress shoes, which were called blue suede shoes. He pointed at his feet and told the girl, don't step on my suedas. Perkins was amused by the comment. He thought it was funny that a man would care more about his shoes than the girl he was with. Later that night, another performer on the show, Johnny Cash, suggested the idea to Perkins. Cash had also served in the Air Force and knew about the pride soldiers took in their dress uniforms. He told Perkins, you should write a song about it. Call it Blue Suede Shoes. The idea rattled around in Perkins' head. One night around 3 a.m, he woke up with the opening lines in his mind. Well, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now go, cat, go. He didn't have any paper handy in his small apartment, so he grabbed what he could find, a brown paper potato sack. He scribbled the lyrics down on the sack, afraid he would forget them by morning. He recorded the song at Sun Studio on December 19th, 1955. Sam Phillips, the owner of Sun, liked the song's energy. He told Perkins, Carl, I think this may be the one. It was released on January 1st, 1956. It started climbing the charts. It was a massive hit. Perkins was on his way to becoming a superstar. He was booked to perform the song on Perry Como's popular national television show. This was his big break. On March 22nd, 1956, while driving to New York City for the television appearance, tragedy struck. The car Perkins was in, driven by his brother, slammed into the back of a pickup truck near Dover, Delaware. Perkins suffered a fractured skull and a broken collarbone. His brother Jay broke his neck. Perkins was hospitalized for weeks. While he was recovering, his song was a sensation, but he, couldn't be out there promoting it. And that's where Elvis Presley came in. RCA, Elvis's new label, saw the potential of the song. They had Elvis record his own version on January 30th, 1956. They agreed to hold off on releasing it as a single while Perkins' version was still climbing the charts. It was a professional courtesy, a rare thing in the cutthroat music business of the 1950s, but by late spring, Perkins' momentum had stalled because of his accident. RCA released Elvis's version. With his national fame and television appearances, Elvis's Blue Suede Shoes became a huge hit, even bigger than Perkins' original. Perkins never begrudged Elvis for it. He said Elvis had the image and the looks to take it to another level. He was just happy he wrote a song that became so famous. It was a song born from an everyday moment of pride, a chance conversation, and a bit of late-night inspiration written on a potato sack. Number 18 was A Failing Marriage, The Secret to a #1 Hit. The song was recorded between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. on a January morning in 1969. It was a comeback song for Elvis, his first #1 hit in the United States in over 7 years. The recording session was intense, requiring over 30 takes to get right. The song's fade out and fade in at the end was an accident that became an iconic part of the record. The song was Suspicious Minds. The story of the song belongs to its writer, Mark James. In the late 1960s, James was a struggling songwriter from Houston, Texas. He was living in Memphis, trying to make a name for himself. His career wasn't the only thing struggling. His marriage was falling apart. He was married to his childhood sweetheart, but they were growing distant. He still loved her, and he knew she still loved him, but they were both plagued by jealousy and mistrust. He felt trapped. One night, he was playing his guitar in his home studio. The chord progression and the melody started to come to him. The lyrics followed, flowing directly from his personal turmoil. "We're caught in a trap. I can't walk out because I love you too much, baby." It was a raw, honest expression of his feelings. He was suspicious of her. She was suspicious of him. They couldn't go on together with these suspicious minds. The song's unusual time signature in the bridge section where it slows down was inspired by James fiddling around with a foot pedal for his organ. He liked the dramatic effect it created. He recorded his own version of the song for Scepter Records in 1968. It was a good record, but it went nowhere. It failed to chart. The record label had no money to promote it. The song seemed destined for obscurity. A year later, Elvis was in Memphis for his legendary recording sessions at American Sound Studio. He was working with producer Chips Moman and the studio's house band, known as the Memphis Boys. Moman was looking for great songs for Elvis to record. He was friends with Mark James and believed in his talent. He asked James if he had anything. James played him the demo for Suspicious Minds. Moman loved it. He knew it was a perfect fit for Elvis. He played it for Elvis, who agreed immediately. And Elvis connected with the song's passion and pain. The recording session was long and grueling. Elvis was a perfectionist. He wanted every note to be right. The Memphis Boys created a powerful, driving rhythm. The backing vocals, arranged by Moman, added to the gospel-like fervor of the track. The famous fade out at the end was not planned. Moman had a habit of doing premature fades on his recordings as a joke on the artists. During one of the final takes of Suspicious Minds, he faded the track out. Elvis and the band kept playing, thinking the take was ruined, but Moman faded the music back in. When they listened to the playback, everyone in the studio agreed it was a brilliant mistake. It sounded like the passion of the song was too strong to be contained. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, hated it. He got into a heated argument with Moman and RCA executives, demanding they remove the fade. He thought it would confuse radio DJs. Moman and Elvis stood their ground. They insisted it stay. It was a rare instance of Elvis defying his manager on a creative decision. They won the argument. The song was released with the false ending, and it became one of its most memorable features. For Mark James, the song was a vindication. His personal pain had been transformed into a global hit. He and his wife did eventually divorce, but the song he wrote about their struggle lives on. Number 17, How Did a Child's Memory of Poverty Become a Social Anthem? The song was released in 1969. It was a departure for Elvis, a song with a strong social message. It reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was his first top 10 hit in the U.S. since 1965. The song told a cyclical story of poverty and hopelessness. It was called In the Ghetto. The song's writer was Mac Davis. Before he became a country and pop star in his own right, Davis was a songwriter from Lubbock, Texas. He grew up in a poor part of town. His father was a building contractor, and Mac often played with the son of one of his father's employees. The boy was black. They were good friends. Davis remembered playing with his friend in the dirt streets of their neighborhood. He saw the world through a child's eyes. He didn't understand prejudice or social structures. He just knew his friend was his friend. He also knew his friend had it harder than he did. His friend lived in a part of town that was more run down, more neglected. It was a ghetto, though he didn't use that word as a child. Years later, in the late 1960s, Davis was trying to write a song about that experience. He wanted to capture the feeling of being born into a situation with no easy way out. He struggled with the lyrics. He came up with the idea of a boy being born in a cold and gray Chicago morning. He followed the boy's life. He learns to steal and fight. He buys a gun. He tries to run, but he dies. And as he dies, a new baby is born in the ghetto, starting the cycle all over again. The initial title of the song was The Vicious Circle. Davis felt the song was powerful, but he was worried. The word ghetto was politically charged. He was a white songwriter from Texas. He was concerned that people would think he was unqualified to write about the subject, or that he was trying to exploit it. He almost didn't finish the song. His publisher, a man named Billy Strange, encouraged him. Strange also happened to be working with Elvis Presley, who was looking for more meaningful contemporary material. Strange thought the song was perfect for Elvis. He took it to him. Elvis was immediately drawn to it. He understood the story. He had grown up poor in Tupelo, Mississippi. He knew what it was like to feel trapped by your circumstances. Some of the people around Elvis were nervous about the song. They thought it was too political for his image. They advised him not to record it. Elvis ignored them. He believed in the song's message. He recorded it during his 1969 sessions at American Sound Studio in Memphis, the same sessions that produced Suspicious Minds. He poured his heart into the vocal performance. You can hear the empathy in his voice. The song was a massive success. It resonated with people all over the world. It showed a different side of Elvis Presley. He wasn't just a rock and roll singer. He was an artist who could tackle serious subjects. For Mac Davis, it was a breakthrough. The song launched his career as a major songwriter and performer. It all started with a memory of a childhood friend and the simple, sad observation that some people are born with a much harder road to walk. Number 16, Could a Rainy Night and a Thumb on a Highway Inspire a Hit? The song features a memorable piano intro that sounds like falling rain. It tells the story of a desperate man hitchhiking in the rain, searching for the woman he loves. It was a top 20 hit for Elvis in 1970. The song was Kentucky Rain. The inspiration came from a real-life experience of one of its writers, Eddie Rabbitt. Before he became a huge country star in the late 70s and 80s, Rabbitt was a struggling songwriter in Nashville. He had very little money. One night in the late 1960s, he was working as a janitor at a mental hospital. He fell asleep in the boiler room. He was supposed to be checking the gauges, but he was exhausted. He was fired on the spot. He found himself out on the street in the middle of a pouring rainstorm. He was broke and dejected. He had to get home, so he started walking and hitchhiking. As he stood by the side of the road with cars speeding by and splashing him with water, the idea for a song started to form in his mind. He imagined a man not just trying to get home, but desperately searching for a woman who had left him. The rain wasn't just water, it was a symbol of his sadness and desperation. He worked on the idea with another songwriter, Dick Hurd. They fleshed out the story. The man is walking down a back road, 7 lonely miles from town. He's been searching for days. The rain is cold and tapping on his shoulder. He asks the wind and the rain if they've seen her. He's showing her photograph to strangers. It's a vivid cinematic story. The song was good, but it needed a home. Rabbitt was a fan of Elvis Presley. He thought the song's dramatic, emotional story would be a great fit for Elvis's voice. He managed to get a demo of the song to someone at Elvis's publishing company. The demo was simple, just Rabbitt's voice and guitar. The demo tape sat on a shelf for a while. Then, one day, a representative from RCA was at the publishing house listening to potential songs for Elvis. He was about to leave when he saw Rabbitt's tape. He decided to listen to one more song. It was Kentucky Rain. He knew instantly it was a hit. He took the song to Felton Jarvis, Elvis's producer. Jarvis loved it too. They brought it to Elvis, who was recording in Memphis in 1969. Elvis heard the story and the lyrics and was hooked. The recording session was notable for the piano playing of Ronnie Milsap, who was a session musician at the time, years before he became a country music superstar. Milsap created the iconic piano part that imitates the sound of rain. His contribution was so significant that it helped launch his own career. Elvis's vocal performance is filled with passion and urgency. He makes you feel the character's desperation. The song became a big hit. For Eddie Rabbitt, it was a life-changing moment. The royalty checks from Kentucky Rain allowed him to quit his odd jobs and focus on songwriting full-time. It set him on the path to his own stardom. It was a journey that started on a miserable, rainy night, fired from a janitor's job, with nothing but a song idea to keep him going. Number 15, did a songwriter need to create a fake identity to get a hit? The song sold over 20 million copies worldwide. It was one of the biggest hits of Elvis's career. It was a simple, upbeat rock and roll song. But the story of how it was written involves a songwriter who felt he had to pretend to be someone else just to get in the door. The song was Don't Be Cruel. The writer was Otis Blackwell. Blackwell was a talented African-American songwriter and singer from Brooklyn, New York. In the mid-1950s, the music industry was heavily segregated. It was difficult for black songwriters to get their songs recorded by major white artists. Blackwell had some success on his own, but he wanted to write for the big stars. He wrote, "Don't be cruel from a place of simple, everyday frustration." He was walking down the street in New York, feeling a bit down. He saw a couple arguing. The words just came to him. It wasn't a profound statement, just a plea for kindness and affection. The melody was catchy and had a strong rhythm. He recorded a demo of it himself, singing and pounding out the rhythm on a piano. Blackwell's publisher was a company called Shalimar Music. The people at Shalimar knew they had a hit on their hands. They also knew that getting it to Elvis Presley would be tough. So they came up with a plan. They would submit the song to Elvis's publishing company, Hill and Range, but they wouldn't use Otis Blackwell's name. Instead, they sometimes used a white-sounding pseudonym, or simply let the publisher's name represent the writer, as they wanted the song to be judged on its own merits, without any prejudice. The demo found its way to Elvis. He listened to it and loved its feel. He recognized the raw, rhythmic energy that Blackwell had put into it. Elvis and his band worked on it in the studio on July 2nd, 1956. They tried a few different approaches. At one point, Elvis took the drumsticks from the drummer, DJ Fontana, and started beating out a rhythm on the back of his guitar to show the band the feel he wanted. That percussive, slapping sound became a key part of the record's rhythm track. The song was released as the B-side to Hound Dog. In those days, B-sides often became hits on their own. Don't Be Cruel was so popular that it went to #1 on the pop, R&B, and country charts, just like Hound Dog. And the single, with 2 massive hits, became one of the best-selling records of all time. Otis Blackwell didn't meet Elvis until after the song was a hit. Elvis told him how much he loved his songs and his style. Elvis had been so impressed with Blackwell's demo that he tried to sing it exactly like him, mimicking his phrasing and vocal inflections. It was a huge compliment. Otis Blackwell went on to write other major hits for Elvis, including All Shook Up and Return to Sender. He also wrote Great Balls of Fire for Jerry Lee Lewis and Fever for Little Willie John. He was one of the most important architects of the rock and roll sound. And it all started with a simple song, born from an everyday observation that needed a little help to cross the racial barriers of the 1950s music business. Number 14, what does a Civil War ballad have to do with rock and roll? The song sold over 1 million copies before it was even released, based on advance orders alone. It was the title track from Elvis's first movie. It's a gentle ballad, a complete contrast to the rock and roll hits that made him famous. The song is Love Me Tender. The melody of Love Me Tender is not original. It's based on a much older song called Ora Lee. Ora Lee was written in 1861 by George R. Polton and W. W. Fosdick. It was a sentimental parlor ballad, popular during the American Civil War. It was a favorite song of soldiers on both the Union and Confederate sides. It was even adopted as the official song of the United States Military Academy at West Point, with new lyrics as Army Blue. In 1956, Elvis was cast in his first film, a Western originally titled The Reno Brothers. The studio, 20th Century Fox, wanted to capitalize on his musical fame. They decided he should sing in the movie. They needed a title song. Ken Darby, the film's musical director, was tasked with finding one. The Colonel and Elvis's publishers, Hill and Range, had a strict rule. Elvis would only record songs that they owned a piece of. This meant that any songwriter who wanted Elvis to sing their song had to give up a portion of the songwriting credit and royalties. Many established songwriters refused to do this. So Darby looked for a melody that was in the public domain, meaning it was old enough that no one owned the copyright anymore. Ora Lee was a perfect candidate. He took the old Civil War melody and wrote new lyrics for it. He created the words that we know today: love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go. He tailored the lyrics to fit the romantic plot of the movie. Because of the publishing deal, the songwriting credit on the record doesn't go to Ken Darby. It reads, Elvis Presley and Vera Mattson. Vera Mattson was Ken Darby's wife. Darby gave the credit to his wife and Elvis so the song would fit the publishing requirements. Darby himself said, "She's not a songwriter, but she's a very good wife." He later explained that he did this because he didn't want his name associated with that kind of business arrangement. Elvis, had no part in actually writing the song, but his name on the credits was a standard part of his business model. Elvis recorded Love Me Tender on August 24th, 1956 in Hollywood. He performed it on The Ed Sullivan Show on September 9th, 1956, a few months before the movie was released. The public reaction was overwhelming. RCA received over 1 million advance orders for the single, an unprecedented number at the time. The movie's title was changed from the Reno Brothers to Love Me Tender to capitalize on the song's popularity. The song showed a different side of Elvis. It proved he could sing a tender ballad as effectively as he could sing a rock and roll screamer. It broadened his appeal to a wider audience, including parents who may have been wary of his rebellious image. It was a calculated business move, taking a piece of American history, a gentle melody from a brutal war, and rebranding it for a new generation, creating one of the most enduring love songs of the 20th century. Number 13, how did a conversation with his wife become a song of regret? The song became one of Elvis's most beloved ballads from his later career. He won a Grammy Award for his 1973 live version. But Elvis didn't record it first. It was written in about 15 minutes after a phone call. The song is Always on My Mind. The writer was Wayne Carson Thompson. He was a country songwriter from Missouri. In the early 1970s, he was in Memphis for a recording session. He was away from home and feeling a little guilty. He called his wife back in Springfield, Missouri. The conversation was a bit tense. She was upset that he was away so much working on his music. He tried to reassure her. He told her, "Honey, you're always on my mind." After he hung up the phone, the phrase stuck with him. He realized it was a powerful statement. It's what you say when you know you haven't been paying enough attention to someone you love. It's an apology and a declaration of love at the same time. He went to the studio piano and started working out the melody. The opening lines came quickly. Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have. Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. He was writing directly from his own feelings of regret. Two other songwriters who were at the studio, Johnny Christopher and Mark James, the same man who wrote Suspicious Minds, helped him finish the song. They wrote the bridge section together. The whole process took less than half an hour. The first person to record the song was Brenda Lee in 1972. Her version was a minor country hit. Later that year, Elvis Presley was in the studio looking for material. He had recently separated from his wife, Priscilla. The split was painful for him. He was heartbroken. When he was presented with Always on My Mind, the lyrics resonated with him deeply. They mirrored his own feelings about his failing marriage. He felt that maybe he hadn't been there for Priscilla as much as he should have been. The lines, "Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time," were especially poignant for him. He recorded the song on March 29th, 1972. His performance is raw and emotional. You can hear the real pain in his voice. It's not just an actor playing a part. It's a man singing about his own life. The song was released as the B-side to Separate Ways, another song about a breakup. Always on My Mind became the bigger hit. It became an anthem for anyone who has ever felt they took a loved one for granted. Years later, in 1982, Willie Nelson recorded a version of the song that became a massive crossover hit, winning multiple Grammy Awards. The Pet Shop Boys had an international #1 with their synth pop version in 1987. But for many, Elvis's version remains the definitive one. It's a perfect marriage of a songwriter's simple, honest moment of guilt and a singer's real-life heartbreak. Number 12, can you build a national anthem from 3 old songs? The song is a powerful 7-minute medley that became a centerpiece of Elvis's live shows in the 1970s. It combines a Confederate anthem, a Union battle hymn, and a gospel song. It was a bold statement about unity and reconciliation in a divided country. The performance is an American trilogy. The idea to combine these specific songs did not come from Elvis. It came from a country and folk singer-songwriter named Mickey Newbury. Newbury was a thoughtful, artistic musician, part of the outlaw country movement. In the late 1960s, he was disturbed by the social and political turmoil in the United States. The country was torn apart by the Vietnam War, civil rights protests, and a generational gap. Newbury wanted to create a piece of music that spoke to this division but also offered a sense of hope and healing. He decided to weave together three songs from different parts of the American experience. He chose Dixie, the unofficial anthem of the Confederacy, representing the South. He chose the Battle Hymn of the Republic, a patriotic song of the Union, representing the North. And to bridge them together, he used All My Trials, a Bahamian lullaby that had become a popular folk and gospel spiritual. His arrangement was brilliant. He started with a slow, mournful version of Dixie, not as a celebration, but as a lament for a lost past. Then he transitioned into the gentle, hopeful melody of All My Trials. Finally, he built to a powerful, triumphant crescendo with the Battle Hymn of the Republic, complete with a full orchestra and choir. His message was clear out of the ashes of conflict and sorrow. A unified nation could rise. Newberry recorded an American trilogy for his 1971 album, Frisco Mabel Joy. It was a critical success, but not a major commercial hit. A year later, Elvis was preparing for his new Las Vegas show. He was always looking for dramatic, show-stopping numbers. One of his band members, a guitarist named Charlie Hodge, played Newberry's album for him. When Elvis heard An American Trilogy, he was blown away. He saw its potential as a stage performance. It was grand, emotional, and patriotic. It fit perfectly with the larger-than-life persona he was cultivating in Las Vegas. He decided to record it and add it to his show. Elvis recorded his version in February 1972. He stayed true to Newberry's arrangement but added his own unique power and stagecraft. His performance was theatrical. He would start quietly, building the emotion, and by the end, with the orchestra swelling and the backup singers wailing, it was an overwhelming spectacle. He often ended the performance by dropping to one knee. The song became a signature part of his concerts, especially his famous Aloha from Hawaii satellite broadcast in 1973, which was seen by over 1 billion people worldwide. For Elvis, the song was a showpiece. For Mickey Newberry, it was a deeply personal statement about his country. The fusion of the two created a powerful cultural moment, taking three pieces of history and weaving them into something new. Number 11 was A Father's Prayer, the source of a gospel hit. The song was first a country hit in 1953. Elvis recorded it in 1960, but it wasn't released until 1965. It became a surprise international hit for him, reaching number 1 in the UK. The song is a simple, reverent expression of faith. It's called Crying in the Chapel. The song was written by Artie Glenn. Artie was not a professional songwriter. He was a regular working man from Texas. The inspiration for the song came from a deeply personal and frightening experience. In the early 1950s, his son, Darrell, suffered a serious head injury in a football game. The doctors were worried. They weren't sure if he would fully recover. Artie was a man of faith. He went to a local chapel to pray for his son's recovery. As he sat there, alone in the quiet church, he was overcome with emotion. He felt a sense of peace and a belief that everything would be all right. He made a promise to God that if his son recovered, he would try to live a better life. His son did recover. Artie was so grateful that he wanted to express his feelings. He decided to write a song about his experience. He called it Crying in the Chapel. The lyrics describe the transformative power of faith. You saw me crying in the chapel. The tears I shed were tears of joy. I know the meaning of contentment. Now I am happy with the Lord. It was a direct, heartfelt testimony. He wrote the song for his son Darrell to sing. Darrell Glenn recorded the song with his band, the Rhythm Riders. It was released in 1953 and became a surprise hit, reaching the top 10 on both the pop and country charts. Several other artists, including June Volley and Rex Allen, also had hits with the song that same year. Elvis Presley was a huge fan of gospel music. It was his first love, the music he grew up with. He knew Crying in the Chapel. In October 1960, during the recording sessions for his gospel album, His Hand in Mine, Elvis and his band started jamming on the song. They recorded a version of it, but it didn't quite fit with the other tracks on the album, so RCA decided to shelve it. It sat in the vaults for almost 5 years, In 1965, Elvis's career was in a bit of a slump. He was making a string of mediocre movies with forgettable soundtracks. His record sales were down. RCA was looking for a hit. Someone at the label remembered the unreleased recording of Crying in the Chapel. They decided to release it as a single. No one expected much from it. It was a 5-year-old recording of a 12-year-old song. But the public loved it. It was a breath of fresh air after the formulaic movie songs. It went to number 3 on the Billboard pop chart and became a huge hit all over the world. It reconnected Elvis with his gospel roots and reminded people of the power and sincerity of his voice. And it all started with a father's worried prayer in a small Texas chapel. Number 10, how did a German folk song become a GI's anthem? The song was featured in the 1960 Elvis movie I Blues. It has a quirky oompa-pa rhythm and features Elvis singing a few lines in German. It was a massive international hit, reaching number 1 in several countries, including the UK. The song is Wooden Heart. The melody is not original. It's based on a traditional German folk song called Muss I denn. The full title is Muss I denn zum Stadtteil hinaus, which translates to Must I then leave this little town? It's a sentimental song about a young man leaving his sweetheart to travel. It was a well-known folk tune in Germany, passed down through generations. When Elvis was in the U.S. Army, stationed in Germany from 1958 to 1960, he would have been exposed to German culture and music. After he was discharged, his first movie was E.I. Blues, a film that capitalized on his recent military service. The plot involved Elvis as a soldier stationed in Germany. The producers wanted to include some authentic German flavor in the soundtrack. Songwriters Fred Wise, Ben Wiseman, Kay Tomey, and Bert Kaempfert were hired to write the music. Kaempfert, a German bandleader and producer, suggested using the melody of Muss I denn. They took the public domain folk tune and wrote new English lyrics to it. They created a story about a soldier who tells a girl that he can't fall in love with her because he has a wooden heart, as he has to leave soon. The lyrics Muss I denn zum Stadtteil hinaus were kept for the chorus, adding a touch of authenticity. Elvis recorded the song in April 1960. The arrangement was deliberately simple and folksy, using an accordion and a tuba to give it a German beer hall sound. Elvis's performance is playful and charming. His pronunciation of the German lyrics isn't perfect, but it added to the song's appeal for American audiences. Interestingly, RCA Records in the United States did not release Wooden Heart as a single. They thought it was too much of a novelty song and didn't fit Elvis's rock and roll image. It was only available on the GI Blues soundtrack album. However, the song was released as a single in Europe, where it became a huge hit. It went to number 1 in the UK for 6 weeks. The demand for the song in the US was so high that another singer, Joe Dowell, recorded a cover version. Dowell's version went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1961. It was a strange situation where the hit version of an Elvis movie song in America was by another artist. Elvis's version was finally released as a B-side in the US in 1964. The song's story is a perfect example of cultural exchange. A traditional German folk song carried by immigrants and sung in homes for centuries was picked up by a team of international songwriters, recorded by an American superstar for a Hollywood movie about his time in Germany, and became a global pop hit. It connected Elvis's personal experience as a soldier with a piece of shared European heritage. Number 9, what links a legendary bluesman to the birth of rock and roll? The song was Elvis Presley's first ever single. It was recorded on the evening of July 5th, 1954. The session wasn't going well. They tried ballad after ballad, and nothing was clicking. Then, during a break, Elvis started fooling around with an old blues song. The moment was electric. It changed music forever. The song was That's All Right. The song was written and originally recorded by Arthur Big Boy Crudup in 1946. Crudup was a blues singer and guitarist from Mississippi. He was a major figure on the Chicago blues scene. His style was raw and emotional. He wrote "That's All Right" as a standard 12-bar blues song. It was about a man telling a woman that it's okay if she leaves him because he'll get along somehow. It was a good song, but it wasn't a major hit for Crudup. He received very little money or recognition for it. Fast forward to 1954, a young Elvis Presley was trying to make his first record at Sun Studio in Memphis. The owner, Sam Phillips, was looking for something new. He had a famous saying, "If I could find a white man who had the Negro sound and the Negro feel, I could make $1 billion." He saw potential in Elvis, but they couldn't find the right song. Elvis, along with guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black, were taking a break. Elvis picked up his guitar and started singing "That's All Right." He wasn't performing it seriously. He was just clowning around, singing it fast and loose with a frantic energy. He changed the rhythm from a slow blues shuffle to an upbeat, driving beat. Scotty and Bill joined in. Sam Phillips was in the control room and heard what was happening. He stuck his head out the door and said, "What are you doing?" They said they didn't know. Phillips told them, "Well, back up, try to find a place to start, and do it again." He started the tape machine. They recorded it in a few takes. It was raw, imperfect, and completely fresh. It wasn't blues, it wasn't country, it was something new, it was rockabilly, it was the sound Phillips had been searching for. They needed a B-side. Bill Black started goofing around, singing the old bluegrass song "Blue Moon of Kentucky" in a high, silly voice. Elvis and Scotty joined in, playing it in the same fast rockabilly style. That became the other side of the record. Local DJ Dewey Phillips, no relation to Sam, played "That's All Right" on his Red Hot and Blue radio show. The phone lines lit up. Listeners went crazy for it. Many people who called in assumed the singer was black. The record was a local sensation and launched Elvis's career. The story has a sad footnote. Arthur Big Boy Crudup, the man who wrote the song, spent years fighting for royalties. He saw his song become a historic landmark, the song that arguably started the rock and roll revolution, but he received almost no financial reward for it. He died in 1974, still struggling financially. His story is a common one from that era, a reminder of the foundational contributions of black artists to a genre that would make white performers like Elvis into global superstars. The birth of rock and roll was a moment of spontaneous, joyful creation, but it was built on a foundation laid by uncredited pioneers. Number 8, how did a simple feeling become a rock and roll phenomenon? The song's title became a catchphrase in the 1950s. It describes a feeling of nervous, romantic excitement. Elvis's recording is famous for its hiccuping vocal style and its sparse, rhythmic sound. It went to number 1 on all 3 Billboard charts. The song was all shook up, like "Don't Be Cruel." This song came from the mind of Otis Blackwell. The initial idea, however, came from an everyday event involving one of the co-owners of Elvis's publishing company, Al Stanton. One day, Stanton was shaking a bottle of Pepsi. He told Blackwell, "Otis, I've got an idea for a song. Call it All Shook Up." Blackwell was not impressed. He thought the title was clumsy and silly. He told Stanton he couldn't write a song with that title. But the phrase stuck in his head. A few days later, he woke up in the middle of the night, shaking. He said he had a strange dream or a vision. He felt all shook up. He suddenly knew how to write the song. He went to his piano and wrote it quickly. He imagined the physical symptoms of being in love. "My hands are shaky and my knees are weak. I can't seem to stand on my own 2 feet." He connected this feeling of being physically rattled to the overwhelming power of love and attraction. He wrote a demo that was simple and percussive, emphasizing the rhythm. When Elvis heard the demo, he loved it. He recognized its potential immediately. He recorded it on January 12, 1957. During the session, Elvis contributed to the song's arrangement. He played piano on the track. He also reportedly added the percussive sound by slapping the back of a chair or a piano stool in time with the beat. You know, that constant thumping rhythm is a key part of the record's drive. Elvis's vocal performance is iconic. He uses a series of stutters and hiccups, a vocal tick that he had used before but perfected on this track. It adds to the feeling of nervous energy, as if he's so overcome with emotion he can barely get the words out. The song was released in March 1957 and was an instant smash. It spent 8 weeks at the top of the Billboard Top 100. It became one of his signature songs. The story behind it is a testament to the strange nature of creativity. It started with a mundane comment about a soda bottle, was rejected by the songwriter, and then came to him in a dreamlike state. It shows how a simple, everyday phrase can be transformed into a cultural touchstone when it's connected to a universal human feeling. Number 7, Did the King of Rock and Roll Steal a Song from a Queen of the Blues? The song is one of Elvis's most famous rock and roll anthems. His performance on the Milton Berle Show in 1956 with his gyrating hips caused a national scandal. But the song was not written for him. It was originally recorded 3 years earlier by a powerful female blues singer. The song is Hound Dog. The story begins with 2 young white songwriters from New York City, Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. They were still teenagers, but they had a deep love for rhythm and blues music. In 1952, the bandleader Johnny Otis invited them to his house in Los Angeles to write some songs for the artists he was producing. One of those artists was Willie Mae Big Mama Thornton. Thornton was a formidable presence. She was a big woman with a booming voice and a tough, no-nonsense attitude. Lieber and Stoller watched her perform and were blown away by her power. They wanted to write a song that matched her personality. They wrote Hound Dog in about 15 minutes. The song is not about a literal dog. In blues slang from that era, a hound dog was a man who hung around a woman for her money, a freeloader, a gigolo. The lyrics are a woman telling off such a man, kicking him out of her house. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't never caught a rabbit, and you ain't no friend of mine. It was a tough, defiant, female empowerment anthem. Big Mama Thornton recorded the song in 1952. Her version is a slow, grinding 12-bar blues. Her voice is raw and full of attitude. The record was a huge hit on the R&B charts in 1953, selling nearly 2 million copies. It made her a star in the blues world. Fast forward to 1956, Elvis was in Las Vegas and his shows were not going well. The older, more conservative audience didn't get his rock and roll style. During his stay, he saw a lounge act called Freddie Bell and the Bell Boys. They performed a comedic, sped-up version of Hound Dog. They had changed some of Lieber and Stoller's original lyrics, most notably removing the more suggestive lines and adding the phrase, "You ain't never caught a rabbit." Elvis loved their high-energy version. He decided to adopt their arrangement and add it to his own show. He didn't know the song's origin as a Big Mama Thornton blues song. He only knew the Freddie Bell version. He recorded his famous version on July 2nd, 1956. It was fast, loud, and aggressive. It was pure rock and roll. Lieber and Stoller were not happy when they first heard it. They hated that he had used the silly Freddie Bell lyrics. But they couldn't argue with the results. Elvis's Hound Dog became one of the best-selling singles of all time. It made them rich and famous. The story highlights the complex relationship between rock and roll and its rhythm and blues roots. A song written by 2 white teenagers for a black female blues singer about a woman's independence was transformed by a white male rock and roller into an anthem of youthful rebellion. Big Mama Thornton received very little financial compensation from the massive success of Elvis's version. She once reportedly said, "I got one check for $500 and I never saw another." Her powerful original was overshadowed, a common story in the history of American popular music. Number 6, could a song about a prison riot become a dance craze? The song was the title track of Elvis's 3rd movie. The film's dance sequence for the song is considered a pioneering moment in the history of music videos. The song itself is a driving rock and roll number that tells a story about a party in a county jail. The song is jailhouse rock, like Hound Dog. This song was written by the dynamic duo of Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. In 1957, They were one of the hottest songwriting teams in the business. Elvis's publisher, Gene Aberbach of Hill and Range, called them to his office in New York. He offered them a chance to write the entire soundtrack for Elvis's next movie. He gave them the script. The movie was about a young man who goes to prison, becomes a star, and gets corrupted by fame. Leiber and Stoller read the script and were not impressed. They thought it was cliche, but they couldn't turn down the opportunity to write for Elvis. Aberbach locked them in their hotel room. He put a big armchair in front of the door and told them not to come out until they had written the songs. Leiber and Stoller went to work. They needed a big production number for the film's climax. They decided to write a song about a fantasy prison party. Leiber, the lyricist, came up with a cast of colorful characters, some real, some fictional. Shifty Henry, the Purple Gang, and Sad Sack were names he pulled from his imagination and pop culture. He created a surreal scene where the inmates are dancing and a prison band is playing. The key line, "Let's rock, everybody, let's rock," turned the title into a call to action. Stoller, the composer, created a powerful, aggressive piece of music to match the lyrics. It was based on a blues progression, but it was faster and harder than anything they had written before. It had a raw, rebellious energy. They finished the songs and were released from their prison in the hotel room. They flew to Hollywood to oversee the recording session. This was unusual. Normally, Leiber and Stoller would just send a demo, but they wanted to make sure Elvis and the band got the sound right. The recording session on April 30th, 1957 was a creative collaboration. Leiber and Stoller worked directly with Elvis, Scotty Moore, Bill Black, and DJ Fontana. They pushed the musicians to play with more aggression. The result was one of the hardest rocking records Elvis ever made. The song was a massive hit, going to #1 in multiple countries. The promotional film clip, choreographed by Elvis himself with its iconic dance moves in the prison cell block set, became legendary. It was a perfect example of how an event, in this case, the making of a movie, could inspire a song. Leiber and Stoller took a simple movie premise and turned it into a wild, imaginative rock and roll fantasy. Number 5, how did a Southern dish get its own funky anthem? The song is funky, swampy, and tells a vivid story about a tough Southern girl. Elvis performed it frequently in his live shows in the 1970s, often using its driving rhythm as a way to introduce his band. The song is Polk Salad Annie. The song was written and originally recorded by Tony Joe White, a musician from Louisiana. His style of music was a blend of rock, blues, and country, often called swamp rock. White grew up in the rural South. He knew the people, the places, and the food. Polk salad, or poke salad, is a real dish. It's made from the young leaves of the pokeweed plant. The plant is poisonous if not prepared correctly. You have to boil the leaves multiple times, changing the water each time to remove the toxins. It was a traditional dish in the rural South, something people ate when they didn't have much else. It was a symbol of poverty and resilience. In the mid-1960s, White was trying to make it as a musician. He was listening to the radio and noticed that all the hit songs were about things he didn't know. He was hearing songs about love and misery or city life. He decided to follow the advice of a friend who told him, "Write about what you know." So he started writing songs about his own life and the things he saw growing up. He wrote about chain gangs, rainy nights in Georgia, and tough country girls. He came up with the character of Polk Salad Annie. She wasn't a real person, but she was a composite of people he knew. She was a poor girl from the sticks whose family was so poor they had to eat polk salad. He made her tough and formidable. Her daddy was a mean old man. Her mama was a sad-eyed woman. He wrote the song with a funky bass-driven groove. The lyrics are descriptive and full of Southern slang. He talks about gators getting your granny. It was authentic. It sounded like the place it came from. White recorded Polk Salad Annie in 1968. It became a top 10 hit for him in 1969. The song was unique and caught the attention of other artists. Elvis Presley was one of them. He was a fan of White's music. He loved the song's gritty, funky feel. It was a world away from the pop songs he had been singing in his movies. And Elvis added Polk Salad Annie to his live show when he returned to the stage in Las Vegas in 1969. It was a perfect vehicle for him. It allowed him to get down and dirty, to show off his bluesy side. His live versions were often extended with a long, dramatic monologue in the middle where he would talk about polk salad. He would use the song's driving rhythm to introduce the members of his TCB band. It became a fan favorite. The song's story is a great example of an artist finding his voice by writing about his own everyday world. Tony Joe White took a humble regional dish and the memory of the people who ate it and turned it into a swampy, funky, internationally recognized rock classic. Number 4, did a songwriter's mood inspire a blue-tinged hit? The song was one of Elvis's last major hits, released in 1976. It's a moody, mid-tempo song with a distinctive bass line. Its title perfectly captured the melancholy that often surrounded Elvis in his final years. The song is Moody Blue. The song was written by Mark James, the same man who wrote Suspicious Minds. James had a knack for writing songs that tapped into a deep emotional vein. In the mid-1970s, he was living in Los Angeles. He was flying to a recording session in Nashville and was in a strange mood. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. He felt up one minute, down the next. The phrase Moody Blue popped into his head. It was a simple, elegant way to describe that feeling of emotional uncertainty. He started to build a song around it. He imagined a woman who was unpredictable, loving one minute and cold the next. Well, it's hard to be a gambler, betting on the number that you lose. The lyrics describe the frustration of trying to love someone you can never quite figure out. James recorded his own version of the song. It was a good record, but like his original version of Suspicious Minds, it didn't become a hit. He sent the song to Elvis's producer, Felton Jarvis. Jarvis loved it and knew it would be a good fit for Elvis. You know, at this point in his life, Elvis was often described as being Moody Blue himself. His health was failing and he was struggling with prescription drug use. His moods were unpredictable. He could be charming and generous one moment and withdrawn and sullen the next. The song's lyrics, though about a woman, seemed to reflect his own state of mind. Elvis was scheduled to record in February 1976 at his home studio in Graceland. The sessions were difficult. Elvis was often not in the mood to sing. He recorded a few songs, but the producers needed more. They played him Moody Blue. He liked it and agreed to record it. He laid down the vocal track. His performance is world-weary and tinged with sadness. He sounds like a man who understands the feeling of being Moody Blue all too well. The song was released as a single and became a #1 country hit. It also crossed over to the pop charts, becoming his last top 40 hit before his death in 1977. The album that followed was also titled Moody Blue. It was a patchwork of live recordings and the few studio tracks he managed to complete. It would be the last album released in his lifetime. The song, born from a songwriter's fleeting feeling on an airplane, became the unlikely title track for the final chapter of a legendary career. Number 3, Where Did the Fire for Burning Love Come From? The song was a massive, high-energy rock and roll hit for Elvis in 1972. It was his last top 10 hit in the United States. It's a joyful, powerful song full of driving guitars and gospel-style backing vocals. The song is Burning Love. The song was written by Dennis Linde, a songwriter from Nashville. Linde was a versatile writer, but he had a special talent for writing catchy, rhythmic songs. The inspiration for Burning Love didn't come from a dramatic life event. It came from the simple, everyday process of being a professional songwriter. Lind was working on a new song. He had a great driving guitar riff. He started singing nonsense syllables over it to find a melody. He came up with the phrase hunk of burning love. He thought it was a bit silly, but it had a good sound. He built the song from there, creating a lyric about a man whose temperature is rising, consumed by the fever of new love. He recorded a demo of the song. It was good, but his publisher didn't think it was a hit. The song was first recorded by the country soul singer Arthur Alexander in 1972. His version was good, but it failed to get any attention. The song then found its way to Elvis. He was looking for a strong, upbeat rock song to record. When he heard the demo for Burning Love, he was hooked. It had the same kind of energy as his early hits. He recorded it on March 28, 1972. The recording session was electric, the band was on fire, the powerful lead guitar riff was played by Dennis Linde himself, who was invited to the session. The song's driving beat and gospel-infused backing vocals gave it an almost spiritual fervor. Elvis's vocal performance is pure joy. He sounds like he's having the time of his life. The song was released in the summer of 1972 and shot up the charts, peaking at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was a huge commercial and critical success. It proved that Elvis could still rock with the best of them. For Dennis Linde, it was a career-making song. He went on to write many other hits, including the famous Goodbye Earl for the Dixie Chicks. The story of Burning Love is a story about the craft of songwriting. It didn't come from a flash of lightning or a deep personal tragedy. It came from a guy in a room with a guitar trying to find a catchy phrase and a good riff. It was a work of professional inspiration, perfectly matched with an artist who was ready to reignite his rock and roll fire. Number 2, Who was the one in the song? The song is a beautiful doo-wop style ballad that was the B-side to the 1956 hit Heartbreak Hotel. Many fans and critics believe it's one of the best vocal performances of Elvis's early career. The song is I Was the One. The song was written by a team of professional songwriters, Aaron Schroeder, Claude Demetrius, Hal Blair, and Bill Peppers. Unlike many of the other stories, this one doesn't have a single clear-cut moment of inspiration from an everyday event. Instead, it's a product of the Tin Pan Alley songwriting system, where writers were paid to create hits on demand. The story behind the song is more about the event of its creation and how it reflected a common, everyday feeling. The publisher Hill and Range wanted a song for the B-side of Elvis's first RCA single. They needed a ballad to contrast with the dark, bluesy Heartbreak Hotel. The songwriters were given an assignment: write a song about lost love, a popular theme at the time. The song's narrator sees his old girlfriend with her new love. He remembers all the things they used to do together. He was the one who taught her how to kiss, who held her hand. It's a song of wistful regret. I was the one who taught her to love. She's in his arms, but she's thinking of. The final line is left unspoken, but the implication is clear. Me. This feeling was and is a universal one. It's the everyday pain of seeing someone you still care about move on with their life. The songwriters tapped into this common human experience. They crafted a simple, elegant melody and a lyric that was both specific and relatable. Elvis recorded the song on January 11th, 1956, the day after he recorded Heartbreak Hotel. His vocal performance is stunning. He sings in a high, clear tenor with beautiful falsetto leaps. The backing vocals by the Jordanaires add to the classic doo-wop feel. It showcased his versatility as a singer. On one side of the record, he was a menacing bluesman. On the other, he was a heartbroken teenager. While Heartbreak Hotel was the monster hit, I Was the One also became a fan favorite. It was a staple of his live shows in the 1950s. The song's origin may have been a professional assignment, but its power comes from the genuine, everyday emotion it captures, an emotion that Elvis, with his incredible voice, brought to life. Number 1, Can a Train Be More Than Just a Train? The song is a classic from Elvis's Sun Records period. It's a haunting, atmospheric recording with a unique chugging rhythm. It's often cited by music historians as one of the most perfect examples of the rockabilly sound. The song is Mystery Train. The song was written and first recorded by a blues musician named Junior Parker in 1953, also for Sun Records. And Parker's version was a slow, traditional blues. The inspiration for the song came from an older source. The lyrics and melody were partly based on the Carter family's Worried Man Blues, a classic folk and country song from the 1930s. The Carter family song contains the lines, "The train arrived, 16 coaches long. Junior Parker adapted this to Train I Ride, 16 coaches long." The mystery train itself is a powerful archetypal image in American folklore and music. It represents fate, destiny, the unknown. It's the train that takes your baby away. It's the train that carries you to a new life or to your death. It's a symbol of unstoppable change. Parker tapped into this deep well of American mythology. When Elvis, Scotty, and Bill recorded Mystery Train in July 1955, it was to be his last single for Sun Records. Sam Phillips was about to sell his contract to RCA. This recording session was a final, brilliant burst of creativity. They transformed Junior Parker's song. Scotty Moore's guitar part is legendary. He played a bright, clean, echo-laden riff that sounds both modern and ancient. Bill Black's upright bass provides the relentless chugging rhythm that mimics the sound of the train on the tracks. Elvis's vocal is otherworldly. He sounds young, optimistic, and defiant. In the original blues and folk versions, the train is a symbol of law. It takes the singer's baby, and she's gone for good. But Elvis, with the optimism of youth and the birth of a new kind of music, changed the narrative. At the end of the song, he sings, "Well, the train rolled up, and I got on with my baby. It ain't never gonna take my baby again." He stops the train, he reverses fate, he takes control. This final Sun recording was an event. It was the culmination of everything they had been working on. It was the perfect fusion of blues, country, and folk transformed into something new and exciting. The everyday event that inspired this hit wasn't a single moment. It was the entire cultural event of post-war America, a time of change and optimism, channeled through three young musicians in a small Memphis studio. The Mystery Train wasn't just taking a baby away, it was carrying American music into a whole new territory.